Welcome to episode 8, and this episode is titled I Love My Ex or Exes because I am ready for all of us to start talking about changing the narrative of how we tell stories about our past relationships and how we should remember our exes. So, let me be clear to say that we don't have to be in love with our exes. We don't have to be in love with them, but I do think it's very important that we change the narrative and say to ourselves that we love them and we wish them from afar and we wish them well. I think all girls listening to this will understand, and maybe guys as well, that being in love is actually very, very different from just sending love to someone. So, in this episode, I'm not going to be talking about how we need to remain friends with our exes because we absolutely don't have to do that. We don't have to keep each other updated on what's going on in our lives. We don't need to be involved or even really know what's going on with them. And this episode of changing the narrative on how we remember or talk about our exes is actually something that we need to do for ourselves. It is our way of taking the power back. It is our way of being in control of the situation. And it's our way of regulating ourselves and our minds and be mindful of how we tell our stories about the past and how we remember the past, because all of this, whether you know it or not, is having a direct impact on how you're living in your present moment, in your present life, and will have a direct impact on how your future is affected. So now I'm not saying that things that didn't work out in the past between you and your past lovers, not to say that things didn't go sour, not to say that you weren't mistreated, not to say that you weren't wounded or hurt by them, not to say that we should overlook all of these things, because those are things that absolutely happened to you and they're so valid for the emotions and the pain and the hurt you feel from it. And there's nothing wrong with acknowledging that the things that happened to you were unfair. But by choosing to send love to those people from afar, you get a hold of the power of how you choose to see the situation. And by attaching more positive thoughts to those past relationships, you actually get a hold of your mental well being. And trust me, whether you like it or not, how we remember our past and how we choose to tell our stories or retell our past stories and how we choose to remember them is all in our power. And the more we take ownership of that power and more we take ownership of our past, the more we have ownership and power about how we live in our present day, in our present lives, and how our future is going to look. So, in this episode, I just want to give you about 3 reasons or so as to why you should love your ex and why choosing to love your ex is actually a good thing and it's actually a good thing for you. So, number one reason you should choose to love your ex is because it's going to help you get out of the victim mindset. You will no longer be a victim of what happened to you. You will no longer be telling the same story about the past and reliving that same trauma over and over again. Because guess what? Your body doesn't know the difference between a real trauma that you are undergoing in the present moment and the difference between that and the difference between a trauma from you just repeating to yourself or to your friends and to other people or just reliving that experience in your mind about what happened in the past. So, for example, let's say you were in a highly stressful relationship and your cortisol levels were all time high. And let's say that you left the relationship, it's been a while. However, you remember this person with a very sour taste. And you keep retelling the story to yourself about how terrible this person was, how terribly they hurt you, how much pain you were in, and you keep telling the story to your friends. You keep reliving it and retelling it to literally anybody who will listen to you. And guess what's going to happen? Your body doesn't know The difference between you actually living that highly stressful parts of that relationship and you retelling and reliving that story. So even though you left that highly stressful relationship, your body is still going to think, just because you're retelling the story, it's going to think that you are actually living that again. And guess what? Your cortisol levels are going to be high. And girlies, we know we don't like high cortisol levels for a whole variety of different reasons. And what's the point? What's the point? I'm not trying to be vain. I'm not trying to be jaded. I'm not trying to be a saint. I'm actually not trying to be a saint at all in this episode of saying you have to give love to your exes. But I'm telling you that if you choose to look at those past relationships with love, look at those people with love, trust me, it is only going to benefit you in the long run. And also, when you get out of these highly stressful relationships and highly stressful traumatic experiences with partners in your life, and you keep retelling it, you are only going to be attracting more of that. And if you are somewhere in the world of manifestations and spirituality and how all that stuff works, a lot of what we attract into our future is very, very directly linked to how we remember and feel about the past. So if you choose to look back and look at that person and you get out of the victim mindset of they hurt me, they did this to me, they wronged me, but instead change the narrative of, yes, they did that to me, but there were a lot of good times as well in the relationship. They did that to me, but I remember the time we saw the sunset together and it was beautiful. They did that to me, but we had a lot of firsts together, which was amazing. It was an amazing experience. So don't negate all the positives as well that probably came out of that relationship, and try retelling the positive stories, but not with the intention of I'm going to get back with them and we're going to be back together again, but just retell the positive stories so you feel good within you and you feel relaxed and you feel lovable and you feel calm. And just by feeling those positive, better feelings, you are automatically going to be in a high vibration and you're able to just build a better life for yourself because you're not in that victim mindset that does nothing but only make you feel more of a drag in your everyday. So, number two reason of why you should love your ex is you start seeing gratitude for becoming the person you are today. There's a whole lot of talk about how people want to be the main character, but has there ever been a main character in a movie that was really fun to watch where the main character didn't go through a whole lot of bad things? It just doesn't happen. So, if you want to be the main character, and you want to be the hero of your journey or the heroine of your journey, you have to go through a whole lot of things. And that's just how life is. And honestly, that is more of a fun movie to watch looking back. It's a much more fun plot. It's not fun in the moment, but you know that every hero comes out of the journey and goes on to live a happy, better life. You know that that's going to be true for you as well. So you start to look at your own journey as a person, as the main character, as someone who has to go through a lot of character development, a lot of plot twists, and a lot of the times the biggest lessons that we learn are from relationships and are from partners because a lot of our value or a lot of our sense of self and worthiness is directly related to how we show up in relationships and how our partners show up for us. So that's where the bulk of our lessons to become better as people are hidden. They're hidden actually in terrible relationships because we have to go through those terrible moments to come out the other side. You have to realize that every single person, every single ex, or every single past lover have all made you to who you are today. And again, I'm not saying that there were no tears, no wounds, scarring, but by choosing to see how all of those things have made you who you are today in terms of being wiser, in terms of being kinder, in terms of being more empathetic, in terms of being more humble. These are all good qualities that sometimes you have to go through those really bad situations to come out the other side. And this podcast, we do talk a lot about spirituality, and I'm going to bring spirituality into this as well and say that we are all here for our souls to evolve, for our souls to learn. And relationships are our biggest teachers. And if you purely start to see the lessons that were learned from these bad relationships, or it doesn't even have to be a bad relationship, just a relationship that didn't work out, you just went your separate ways and what that taught you. If you can purely look at the lessons, you will see that every single person that came into your life is a gift. Every single past lover, every single ex, every single person that you had a crush on or made you feel some type of way, they are all actually gifts that came into your life. And I choose to see every single person from my past as a gift because the lessons that they have taught me are so invaluable. So invaluable. I've been in relationships where I was thought to be patient. I was thought to sometimes lose my patience. I was pushed to show my worst angry self, and I learned how to deal with my anger issues. I learned how to be more humble. I learned how to be calm. I learned how to be more giving. I learned how to not be as giving. I actually, a lot of the times, learned how to stand up for myself. I learned how to walk away from things. And if I wasn't pushed to those limits, my soul would have never learned those lessons. And in fact, I think coming back to the next point number three of why you should love your ex is you'll find grace and forgiveness for you and your younger self. So again, choosing to see your ex or exes in a positive light and choosing to see them as gifts and blessings is actually going to help you find more grace for yourself and for your younger self. A lot of times we regret and we stay in a state of regret because we feel like we stayed in relationships longer than we needed to. And a lot of it, most of the time, is not love. A lot of the times we stay in long relationships just because of habit and convenience. And we're so afraid to go out there and see what else is out there. And we're so afraid to also just be alone. So we keep going back to our comfort zone. A lot of the times that is our ex or exes. So by staying where we know we shouldn't, we build a lot of resentment and regret upon ourselves because we constantly feel like we are staying in a place where we shouldn't and we keep betraying that inner voice, which eventually starts to feel like a lot of shame and a lot of, again, regret and guilt. And a lot of these emotions, again, spiritually are not so good feelings. All of these emotions bring you down. They bring your vibration very low. You start to question your sense of self, your sense of worth. And overall, it's just not a great place to be. So if you're spiritual, you know how important it is to stay high vibrational. And so when I say to you, that you should start reframing how you look at your exes and start telling to yourself that I love my ex or I love my exes. I choose to send them love. I choose to wish them well, regardless of how things ended or regardless of how bad they went. You are basically saying to yourself that you love the younger you that choose to stay in that relationship. You were hopeful. You believed in the love. You did the best you could really do from what you knew at that time. So, with this new narrative, actually, of sending love to your ex, your exes, your past lovers, by sending love to them, you are actually sending love to yourself. And I truly 100% believe that. I, for the longest time, held so much resentment. I held so much just hatred. I had so much just the victim mindset of, I can't believe this person did this to me, or I can't believe they treated me that way. I can't believe they lied to me. I can't believe they told me they were something, but they were not. The longer I kept telling those stories in my mind, the longer I actually was dwelling in that space of just negativity and building walls around myself and just being in a not so great place because I wasn't able to actually even fully move on. The longer I kept telling those negative stories in my mind, and literally to all my friends who kept listening to me just because they were my friends, I'm so grateful for them. But by continuing to keep saying the same stories over and over and over again, I was actually not able to move on. Well, that's what I so badly wanted. I so badly wanted to move on. And guess what happened the moment I decided to change that narrative in my mind and say, I am so grateful that I met this person. I am so grateful they came into my life. And because they came into my life, I was able to do this, and this. Because they left my life, I was able to do this, and this. I I'm not joking. I have a list of the people that I've from my past. There's not that many, there's like three. And I have a list of all the things that that situation taught me, all those things that those people taught me, all their positive qualities as well. Because there were a lot of times where they had some really great qualities that I have now learned to embody because I met them and because I learned about them. So change the narrative, and it's most of the time it's not for them, it is for you, because the moment I started saying positive stories about my past, guess what, I was able to let them go. I was able to truly let it go because again, love is just so beautiful. Society teaches us to believe that you fall in love one time with one person. They're supposed to give you everything. You're supposed to give them your everything. You just get married, you have a bunch of kids together, and you die together. But guess what? Love is actually so much more than that. And I'm glad we're able to have these conversations. And I'm not the first one to say this. I have actually heard other podcasters talk about this theory of love as well, where we really have to change how we look at love, especially romantic love. I know that there's all kinds of love. There's love that you find in community, love within friends, love with parents, love with siblings, all these other things. But I specifically want to talk about romantic love because I don't believe that you're supposed to be born in this world, marry, fall in love one time, marry that person, and die with them. If that happens, that is freaking phenomenal. You know, that is such a rare case and that is so beautiful in its own way. But in the world we live today, we have to adapt. We have to adapt. We have to evolve. And we have to stop labeling our past loves and past people and our exes as these terrible, terrible people who have done us so wrong. Because I truly believe that every single person comes into our life for a reason. And this is actually like number four of why you should love your ex or your exes is because when you look back, there are probably a lot of firsts that you had in these relationships with these people. And life again is full of little moments, right? If you look back at a relationship and say, this person was a terrible, terrible person to me, which could be true, they could have been horrible people, but choose to see those beautiful first moments and experiences that you had with that person and choose to take those moments with you forward. You know, again, I'm not saying that you should get back with this person. I'm not saying you need to be in touch with each other. I'm not saying you should want to know what's happening in their life and they should know what's happening in your life. None of that. Absolutely none of that. You can have absolutely zero contact. And I probably think zero contact is the best. At least that's what works for me. But choose to take those little pieces of happy moments that you had together because those are also parts of your life. And that's all life is. Life is about collecting beautiful little moments. And sometimes it's from people in the past that you'll never talk to or never see them again. But that doesn't mean that beautiful moment that you had together should be forgotten, because that was also a part of your life and that is also part of who you are today. And being in love with someone is very different. And just loving someone, loving them from afar, wishing them well always, and just letting life do life, you will have such a sense of just calm, good energy, gratefulness, joy, peace more than anything that you will feel. And I think, in conclusion, by choosing to love our exes for whoever they are and however things ended, we only are taking our power back over the situation by getting out of the victim mindset, by choosing to live with more gratitude, and by choosing to be so, so thankful to God and to the universe for all those lessons learned. And by doing so, we are only showing the ultimate form of self love, because you're letting go of those old stories, you're letting go of those negative vibrations, and you are now free. You are free. You are free to just collect the happy moments, the happy memories, and move forward and be excited for all the new people that are about to come into your life. And again, not have that expectation of this one person is gonna be my end all be all. Just allow life to do its thing and choose to always look at the positive and choose to always surrender to the moment. With that, I hope you really enjoyed this episode and I hope you had a little mindset shift from listening to this episode. And if you like this episode, don't forget to like and rate my podcast. And this is Nikki K signing out for now. And I'll see you next week with another topic.